We live in a world built of steel. Our skyscrapers, railways and ships all depend on it. Yet everywhere, steel is quietly losing a battle with nature. Rust creeps in, a persistent enemy that eats away at our structures. This isn't just about appearances. Rust undermines the very strength we rely on. Despite coatings and advanced alloys, steel's vulnerability remains. Our world, for all its might, is in a constant state of managed decline. We accept this decay as inevitable. Build, rust, replace, repeat. But what if this cycle isn't the only way? What if, buried in the past, there's a different story, one of iron that endures, not decays? The rusting relics of today seem to say otherwise, but history holds a secret. There exists a kind of iron, forged centuries ago, that defies everything we think we know about durability. Let's uncover the story of iron that stands the test of time. Across northern Europe, archaeologists have unearthed Viking Age relics, swords, axes, and everyday tools. These objects have survived 1,000 years in harsh, damp soils. By modern logic, they should be nothing but rust. Yet many emerge astonishingly intact, their edges and patterns still visible. How did ancient iron outlast our modern steel? These discoveries challenge our assumptions about progress and material science. Viking iron wasn't just a product, it was a legacy of resilience. Their craftsmanship was deeply connected to the land and tradition. The survival of these artifacts is no accident. It's the result of a deliberate, ingenious process. To understand their secret, we must step into the world of the Viking forge. Modern steel is made in massive blast furnaces, aiming for purity and uniformity. Iron ore, coke and limestone are melted, impurities removed, and precise alloys created. The result, a pure, homogeneous metal. Viking smiths, however, used small clay and stone bloomeries, working at lower temperatures. Their process didn't fully melt the iron. Instead, it produced a spongy bloom, a mix of iron and slag. This bloom was hammered, compacted, but never fully purified. The Viking approach wasn't about perfection, but about working with the material's natural impurities. Their iron was a composite, not a pure metal. The slag remained, woven into the iron's structure. This imperfection was key to its resilience. The Viking smiths created not just iron, but a tough, adaptable material. Their quest was for strength that could endure, not just shine. In their hands, resilience mattered more than purity. The Viking Bloomery's secret was its fuel, charcoal, not coal. Charcoal burned clean, free from sulphur and phosphorus that weaken iron. The furnace was a vertical shaft, layered with charcoal and ore, air pumped in by bellows. The smith carefully controlled the fire, watching and listening for the perfect moment. Inside, carbon monoxide stripped oxygen from the ore, forming metallic iron without melting it. The result, a glowing, spongy bloom, a tangled mass of iron and slag. This dirty iron was far from a flaw. The mixture of metal and glassy slag was the source of its strength. The Bloomery produced a perfectly imperfect iron built for endurance. Once out of the furnace, the bloom was hammered, squeezing out some slag but leaving much behind. Under a microscope, Viking iron reveals a web of tiny slag filaments, glass-like stringers embedded in the metal. These filaments act as barriers, blocking cracks and slowing rust. They also make it harder for water and oxygen to reach the iron's core. Viking iron, in effect, contains its own microscopic shield against corrosion. Another secret. Viking ore, often bog iron, was rich in phosphorus. Phosphorus formed a thin protective layer on the iron's surface, further resisting rust. The combination of slag filaments and phosphorus created a multi-layered defence. Modern steel, by contrast, lacks these internal barriers. The Viking method turned impurities into protection. Their iron was designed, at the microscopic level, to survive. This was no accident. It was the genius of their craft. Viking smiths were instinctive recyclers. After each smelt, leftover slag, still rich in iron, was added back into the next batch. Over generations, this recycling refined the slag, making it a better flux and a more effective barrier in the final iron. The process improved with each cycle as knowledge and materials were passed down. The slag heap beside the forge became a resource, not waste. This evolving practice made Viking iron ever more resilient. Unlike our throwaway culture, the Vikings built improvement into their very ground. Their legacy was a living, evolving material, stronger with every generation. The story of Viking iron versus modern steel is a tale of two philosophies. Modern steel seeks purity and uniformity, but this perfection creates vulnerability. When a crack forms, it spreads unchecked through the flawless structure. Viking iron, messy and impure, is full of internal barriers that halt decay. The Vikings embraced imperfection, folding and hammering their iron into a complex, resilient web. Their material was tough because it was diverse. In seeking perfection, we've made our steel brittle. The Vikings, by working with flaws, created lasting strength. Their slag wasn't waste, it was a shield. Sometimes true resilience comes from clever integration of diversity, not from purity. That's also the Viking iron teaches us about sustainability and resilience. Their process worked with nature, using local materials and recycling everything. Waste became resource, and each generation improved on the last. Their iron was strong because it was flexible and imperfect. This approach stands in contrast to our linear disposable systems. The Vikings show that diversity and adaptability create lasting stability. Their wisdom was passed down through hands-on experience, not textbooks. It's a reminder true strength often lies in the lessons of the past. The echo of the Viking hammer still speaks to us today. Their craft was honest, aimed at lasting utility, not illusion. They traded purity for resilience, and their iron endures as proof. This ancient wisdom urges us to value diversity, reuse, and generational knowledge. True survival depends on adaptable strength, not rigid perfection. The world is full of hidden lessons, waiting to be rediscovered. The story of Viking iron is just one. Subscribe to join us as we uncover more enduring wisdom from the past.